call this meeting to order of the Santa Barbara Unified School District. Reconvene from closed session. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Buenas noches, tenemos servicio de interpretación disponible si alguien prefiere escuchar esta presentación en español.
Thank you. Headsets for the hearing impaired are also available. Please indicate if you need a headset. I also wanted to say Happy New Year. Welcome everybody to the meeting this evening. So the announcement of a closed session action. Make sure I have the correct words here. In closed session on item B2, the board voted in closed session to approve ratification of December 19th, 2008 final ratification. 2019, December 19, 2018 final settlement agreement, general release and student versus Santa Barbara Unified School District special education due process. The vote voted unanimously to approve the ratification. The motion was made by Ms. Capps, seconded by Ms. Ford. The vote was unanimous. That concludes the closed session action. Next, we'll have the superintendent's report.
I have two topics to provide as an update to the board. The first is information about the San Marcos High School hiring process. These are some requests from the last board meeting. The parent input meeting is going to begin in about 25 minutes at San Marcos High School. Just by way of background, I mean, we worked with staff, we worked with our consultant. The schedule at San Marcos High for a high school is busy. Last night they had their open house. Last week was the first week back from the break. We just were looking for the right date. I think tomorrow there's a big basketball game, I hear, so just trying to thread that needle of schedule. Dr. Fred Van Leuven will be running that session tonight at San Marcos High School. The staff input is scheduled for next week, all day Wednesday, as well as with students. And I met with the school leadership team about the selection of the 12 teachers. They had some process questions, so we just worked through that. I really encourage them to get broad representation across, all academic perspectives. The CSEA team on campus is going to run their selection process for their members. We have the parent groups that are in the process of selecting their representative. There was a survey that went live today, and it's available for these 4 days. And I clicked through the questions. I did not fill anything out because I don't want to give my input, but it's a pretty broad set of questions, and the entire staff received a link to that survey. And board members, you received a copy of that so you could see the questions. The recruitment of candidates is ongoing. I spoke with our consultant, Dr. Van Leuven, and he said as soon as they posted it back in December, they got some immediate interest. He is waiting for the EdCal periodicals to go live this week, and interest, I think, is going to continue to pick up. So I'm confident that we're going to have a strong candidate pool. There was one other thing. The survey, I mentioned that. So there's an input about the San Marcos hiring process. The staff, the meeting yesterday, this week, or was it last week, Ms. Carey, I can't remember. We met with the entire staff, which was about 130 people, just to go over the process, to answer any questions. And I thought their questions were good. They were straightforward. They seemed prepared for the process. So that's the update about San Marcos High School hiring process. The second is, and the board received this info, but we just have a standard of acknowledging when we as a community lose a student, a parent, and it's really hard when you lose a student. And obviously this one had been going on for years. It was a health condition. But we just want to take a moment to remember the passing of Ulysses Paz. He was a student at Santa Barbara Junior High. You read the article, the newspaper story, just a great kid. I read the newspaper article. What a heart-touching moment when the son says, "Dad, it's okay. I'm ready to go." It's like, wow. Those are words you just never want to hear as a parent. So let's just take a moment of silence and just recognition of Ulysses Paz. Thank you for that moment. And, the community had a remembrance in Montecito last week, and I was not able to attend, but I heard it was very heartfelt. Montecito, I touched base with Superintendent Anthony Rainey. They had to relocate today because they're in that debris flow area. Fortunately, Hope School District is their home away from home, and that's all been dialed up, so really glad that they have all those systems built. I understand the evacuation order was lifted just in the last hour, so it looks like people will be able to return back home. But some memories of last year, so we think of our friends in the Montecito area. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Superintendent Masioka. Board comments and correspondence? Ms. Capps?
Yeah, thank you. In terms of correspondence, the group I hear the most from are parents, and so I appreciate, Mr. Matsuoka, that you gave an update on the search, because I did hear quite a bit from parents in preparation for today's meeting, and questions really about the scheduling. So I'm happy that you gave some explanation to that, because there were questions about why is it on a board meeting so that the board can't be there and you all can't be there. And I just wanted, as I assured them in my emails responding, to state that that it was a scheduling issue, as you've explained, but that it doesn't in any way reflect a lack of engagement on behalf of myself as a board member, and the other board members can speak for themselves. But so I just wanted to state that, because I think it's important, again, especially given our meeting last time in December, how much we all expressed the desire to get this process right, and to acknowledgement of the disruption at that school, and what a priority it is to get a fantastic principal as good as we can possibly get, as well as a process that is as good as possible. So thank you for that.
Additional comments? Dr. Reed?
Yeah, I just wanted to just acknowledge, Mr. Matsuoka, one of the reasons why it went so smoothly, I think, the systems that were set in place, and you were one of the leaders in helping to bring that during the debris flow. So I just wanted to acknowledge, because I think that was a really challenging time for all of us. But you were one of the spearheaders, and so I think it's important to acknowledge the work that you did for the district and for our community. So thank you for that. Yeah, and I think in our world we have so many events and so many things that we have to attend to, and so many everything is important to everyone. So we can't make everything, but just to reiterate, Ms. Capps, that it is important, as I believe as a board member, that the process is correct and it's done well. And so I support the work that's being done. And I appreciated all of the process that is in place, and certainly the survey, because I thought that was very thorough. On another note, I just wanted to bring forward again that you had mentioned as a board that you were still interested in doing coffee with the board, and so I did not drop the ball. I want to get that going again, and I actually reached out to Mr. Woodward of Dos Pueblos High School, as we had done coffee with the board for the elementary parents, and then we started with actually Monroe. Then we started with Harding.
Yes.
With Ms. Sims Moten and I, and the goal of it, just for those who don't know about it, is really to bring transparency to who we are as board members, as people that want to get to know our community. And sometimes the only way you know us is by us sitting up here on the dais, which is really not conducive to a connection. We're up here going whatever, waving what you think is our magic wand, but when in fact, we really want to be on the same connecting place with you. And so the essence behind these these meetings is to have conversations and to have it be sort of free-flowing. And I want to acknowledge Ms. Capps. We also met together at the last coffee with the board. And the first one was, I think, a little more formal. And we had a full-on regalia of food and donuts. And anyway, I think Ms. Capps' idea is, why does it have to be so formal? We can just do it more casually and just let it flow. And so I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it saves a lot of energy. But just to acknowledge Ms. Capps and Mr. Paredes Ulloa, who is in the audience, but who is also a past board member, whom I'm so thrilled to see tonight, was also a participant in Coffee with the Board. And so what I would like to acknowledge is that the next one will be, and it's on a Google Sheet that you can all get to, but not you, but all of us, that the next date would be February 2nd. It would be a Thursday. We picked Thursday evenings for high school because we felt high school with parents, the evenings were more accessible, wherein the elementary, the next one, will be most likely in March. And those have been very successful in the morning when parents are dropping off. So I'm looking forward to more public opportunities to connect with us, and I will leave it up to our board members to sign up on a date that makes the most sense for them.
Okay, thank you. And I would just like to add that I'm looking forward to the coffee with the board. We can be less formal, but I like the donuts in the coffee. So let's not, let's not, and I think the parents appreciate that as well in that sense. So we can maybe add more fruit, I get it, in terms of that. So I'm with you on that. So, well, we might add one or two, small mini donuts, but more larger fruit. I get it. So respecting your Sue's wellness. So definitely looking forward to doing those again. That was really informative and just allowed us to have a relationship with the community and the parents, and seeing us as real folks down here, really wanting to support our students and certainly supporting our parents. The other thing I wanted to mention was that we have two students, I believe one at San Marcos High and Santa Barbara Junior High, that are going to the nationals in ice skating. Two local, it was a segment on KUYT, and I apologize, I don't know their name, but I know there's a senior the young man is a senior at San Marcos High, and the young man's, I think she might be in 7th grade at Santa Barbara Junior High, so we want to wish them well. I think that's upcoming pretty quickly. And they were skating and doing all their training at the local skating rink there. So we have something to be proud of and look up there as well. I also wanted to point out that I appreciate the process that's going forth with the San Marcos. It is really important for us to have a really good process and to make sure that we get the best principal and person there to move forward in this process. I also think with regards to the board, there's at some point we need to take a step back and not be so involved in the details of the process and let the process do it. I think we've had opportunities to really give our input, because I think in the end, when it comes to us for a recommendation, we're more objective in that place. It's like if you're so involved in the details of every step of it, it's like sometimes auditing your own work. And so I think it's important we put forth our input with regards to the process. I think we need to trust that process, and as we move forward and allow it to do that, we do so in our leadership, ensuring that we're ready to move forward and we're trusting the process, that we've had the opportunity to input on it, and we're going to trust that process going forward. So I appreciate all the work that Mr. Matsuoka is doing, as well as the staff that is supporting that process. So, yes, Ms. Ford, didn't see you. Thank you.
Thank you. I must say that I would like to underscore Ms. Capps' comments about the importance of this process, and both of you also. I know that the kinds of concerns that I receive from the community are just about how the parents are going to be chosen for the committee, and so the sooner that there's some kind of specific statement that goes out to all the parents about how parents will be chosen, I think. I don't see that as getting in the weeds. I see that as just us being able to answer some of the questions that are coming forward. I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall at the meeting tonight, but that ship has sailed, so I still want to stay quite involved. I did want to mention, now that I have just a little more than a month under my belt as a board member, that I've had an opportunity to really experience 3 major events that I thought were just indicative of how important a few things are, and the power of a few things in our community: the power of the arts, the power of community building, and the power of collaboration. So the winter musical I attended for Santa Barbara High School was this amazing, really creative performance by 4 students who changed their roles at different performances, and the staging was amazing, and so was the set. It just made me super proud of what is possible. And then another event that I attended, perhaps some of you were there, was the Winter Showcase that took place at Santa Barbara High School, benefiting the Grace Fisher Foundation. And this was an amazing community event where Santa Barbara High School and Santa Barbara and San Marcos High School madrigal singers performed together, and also involved alumni, and the Santa Barbara Music Academy was performing, Santa Barbara Youth was performing, and Santa Barbara Youth Symphony performed, and it was just a beautiful example of what can happen when students from all over the city come together. And then Saturday night was the second night of the Kids Helping Kids benefit from San Marcos High School. It was at the Granada, another packed house, just doing this amazing combination of musical performances and an understanding of what community service is truly about. And again, great kudos to all the adults, whether they were sponsors or parents or obviously teachers and staff who made all these things come together. But the potential that we have with our kids in this district is just amazing. So I have the programs from the shows if anyone is interested, and I'm just proud to be part of this community.
Thank you. Make sure I'm looking down, make sure I see any hands coming up. Okay. All right, so next we'll move to public comments. Ms. Capps?
Yes, we have 5 public comments. First, I'll call on Martha Centriso. She'll be followed by Anna Gott, who will be followed by Caroline Abate. Yes, and so this means you have 3 minutes, and I'll give you a 30-second warning. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Martha Santrizos, and my friend Maureen Earls asked if I could come and say a few words this evening, since she was unable to come. We are both members of CLU Santa Barbara, Clergy and Laity United for Economic Justice, and we serve on the environmental group task force together. I don't usually speak publicly about renewable energy that often, not because I lack passion, but because my work takes me in other directions most of the time. You might be surprised where renewable energy is used in our community. Some people may not be aware of, say, that in Isla Vista, Pescadero Lofts, a converted sorority, is now a 32-unit complex for the formerly houseless. The top of Pescadero Lofts carport is full of solar panels collecting the sun's energy. They received a special grant for the panels. And in Santa Barbara, what better place can you think of to live for collecting the sun's energy, where many of our houses and buildings face south? When I was thinking about what to say this evening, I couldn't help but think of the long-term effect and the multiple opportunities that living and having solar panels would provide over the years, and the teaching experiences for when children come to a campus. 1, children learn by example. Do as I do, not just as I say. Teachers are leaders. I learned another saying in church: model the way. Actions speak louder than words. Protecting the planet and transitioning to renewables is so important right now. Every person has a stake in the future. Every action counts. Now is the time to reduce the use of fossil fuels for the sake of the community, for the sake of the planet.
30 seconds.
The solar panels would be a great opportunity and starting place toward taking action for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. And Anna Gott.
Good afternoon, Board. I actually gave you a handout. My information is on the back side of it. I also have some information about an appeal that I am working on that will be heard at the City of Santa Barbara on March 26th. I reached out over the summer, and I didn't really get a response from the school district. And I thought that I would come today to talk to you about this particular issue. I don't know if you're worried about safety with pedestrian or bicyclists going to and from Santa Barbara Junior High School, but I think that you should be. The development is actually one of the main access routes for the high school, not the high school, the junior high, at the end of Ortega. And at the corner of East Ortega and Milpas, there will be a 76-unit multi-use building with about 3,000 square feet of commercial. If you take a look at the second page, I have to tell you, or warn you, I am kind of okay at Photoshop, and so please excuse my rough little drawings. If you take a look at the first illustration, you can actually see how the street is actually set up right now with parallel parking. There is a bike lane down Milpas. And right now, when anyone actually makes a right from Milpas to get to that entrance, they actually will drive their bicycles parallel to the vehicles. That's pretty safe to do. But a change that I believe that actually is going to put people in danger, a change that actually increases the size of the building, and I think has a very negative effect with regards to our lower income residents, actually would increase the number of vehicles that are in those parking places, and instead of being parallel, they're now perpendicular. So what happens? As you make a right from Milpas onto East Ortega, anyone on a bicycle is directly behind the rear of a vehicle that will exit out into the street with poor visibility. I think that's an issue you should worry about, because they also have
30 seconds.
They have also moved the pedestrian sidewalk to the other side of the street. And they have turned all of these parking places into 90-minute parking, which means there's going to be a lot of turnover and a lot of people that may not be really familiar with backing out into a street because it is not a parking lot. And it will endanger anyone entering or leaving that exit. There's also some issues with regards to fire access. So if you would like to contact me, please do.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So next we have Caroline Abate, followed by Sharon Broberg. Thank you.
Members of the Santa Barbara Unified School District Board of Education, thank you for allowing me to speak with you. Our schools are the place where the promise of our nation's future begins. But when harmful and dangerous ideas are put into our students' very impressionable and vulnerable young minds, our schools become the place where that promising future comes to a tragic end. I am here to speak in opposition to the ideas contained in the Just Communities Central Coast programs in Santa Barbara's public high schools. This program teaches ideas, as shown in the table, Forms of Oppression, that certain groups are privileged and continue systems of oppression against targets such as women, people of color, working class and poor. Even Christians are listed as a category of people that perpetuate systems of oppression. Ideas like this damage the peaceful and cooperative relationship between individuals that are necessary to the working of our country, starting with teachers and students. For example, how will Black or Hispanic students relate to their teachers who are white when those very teachers are teaching those students that they continue to oppress them, even unconsciously? While at the same time, those teachers are asking those students to be respectful to them as their classroom teacher, follow their directions, and do their homework. The illogical and contradictory message of the Just Communities curriculum weakens the positive and constructive teacher-student relationship that is the foundation of academic success. It makes the job of being a teacher just that much more difficult, as well as being unfair to teachers who work hard to make sure that all students reach whatever their particular academic achievement level may be. Of course, we all want to be fair and give everyone an equal opportunity. However, the ideas of oppressor and target in the Just Communities curriculum wrongfully play on our sympathies by manipulating and distorting a good and rightful sentiment into a wrongful and destructive ideology. Do not be
30
fooled
seconds.
and do not let yourselves fall into this deceitful trap. Please reconsider your support of these programs in our public high schools. Instead of teaching people into hostile and competing groups based on oppressors, targets, and differences, schools should teach what we all have in common: our American Constitution, our mutual love of our cherished freedoms, the patriotism of America's proud heritage of teamwork and solidarity, and the ideals that bind us together and bring out the best in each other.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to share this perspective with you.
Thank you. Next up is Sharon Broberg, followed by our last speaker, who is will be Pamela Burry.
Good evening. I have 3 minutes, so I've limited my 3 reasons to 3 reasons why Santa Barbara School Board should promote solar on the schools. It's the right thing to do financially. That's 1. It's the right thing to do for social justice. That's 2. It's the right thing to do for climate survival. That's 3. Financially, putting solar on the rooftops will save money. I'm sure there's many experts that can help you with the numbers. Number 2, it's the right thing to do for social justice. The electricity that we have in Santa Barbara comes to us from gas-fired plants in Oxnard. It comes on a long string transmission line. We need to generate our electricity locally. And the school children in Oxnard are suffering higher than average asthma rates and other respiratory illnesses because of these plants and the toxic air. Number 3, it's the right thing to do for our climate survival. We have been gently calling our climate crisis global warming. I believe it's time to call it like it is. We're in a climate crisis, climate catastrophe. Our kids are studying about this climate crisis in their science classes. And they can see what's happening in our own town: droughts, fires, mudslides. Let's give them a reason to hope by taking positive action, putting solar installations on our carports and rooftops at the schools. A few months ago, Greta Thunberg, a 15-year-old Swedish girl, began a school strike for climate in front of the Swedish Parliament. She quickly became an international media climate superstar, so much so that she was invited to speak at the UN climate talks last month in Poland at the COP24. I hope you will all take time to go online and read her full speech. But one of the things she said, she looked right in the eyes of the adults
30 seconds.
there from all over the world and said, "You say you love your children above all else, but you are stealing their future in front of their very eyes. So I urge you to move as soon as possible to solarize the schools for Greta and for all the children. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final public comment will be by Pamela Burry. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm a climate activist, and I sort of read the news through that lens, so I don't know how much other people know, but this October, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change issued a report which said that we basically have to 2030 to cut our greenhouse gas emissions worldwide by 45%. So it's now a little over a decade. We have to cut our greenhouse gas emissions by almost in half in order to have a safe, livable climate that doesn't go beyond 2 degrees centigrade warming. Currently, our trajectory is to 3, 4, or 5 degrees centigrade warming. And that's why we have students, not only Greta, but all over the world rising up to demand a future that's safe for them. So what better way for the schools to respond to this? Because we're going to see children here asking more and more questions and hopefully not having to strike. But what we should be doing as adults is showing the way forward. So when you have to talk about how inevitably the climate is going to worsen, at least you can say, we are doing our part, just like the city of Santa Barbara, city of Goleta, county. Everybody's saying we're going to move toward community choice energy, and the cities have said we're going to set a goal to go 100% renewable. So this is your opportunity to help them. And the whole thing about we've got these 10 years is that we have the 10 years not only to make the decision to do what each of us in every community can do to lower our carbon and other greenhouse gas emissions. We not only have to do it in 10 years, we not only have to make the decision, but we have to do it within 10 years or sooner. So it's not like we'll put it off to next year or the next year. It's please understand the urgency and make a decision this year so that you can implement this over the next few years and be ahead of the game. When your children become upset, everybody, the whole community will be able to point to this. Our schools are doing what they can. We understand and we care about your future. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we move to item D, accepting of donations. Do I hear a motion?
I move to accept with gratitude the donations.
I second it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Next, item E, consent agenda. Are there items the board members would like to pull?
Yes, 10, please.
Okay. E10.
And 4 and 5.
E4 and 5, okay. Are there others? Good. So we've traditionally had, if they're short, question.
Staff would like to pull item E13 just for a brief comment before voting.
For brief comment, okay.
Yeah.
So we'll take them in order. If it's not a long, Dr. Reed, we can start with you. If something we can just clear up quickly.
Yeah, I just have a question that maybe can be cleared very quickly. Essentially, I had an opportunity to talk to Mr. Rickman, and he gave a very thorough and very succinct response, but I thought it would be good for the public to hear, because I thought it was a very, something interesting that we should know. And that is just to kind of share the goals behind this trip that's taking place, let's see, where is this? It's at the...
Wisconsin in the end of January.
Yeah, yeah.
That's where it is.
Which sounds very exciting. The place to go. But it sounds like we're learning more about competency-based education model. And so I wondered if you could just kind of share what you shared with me. I think it would be good for the public to hear what's going on.
Of course. Since Mr. Matsuoka arrived, he's encouraged us, and we've set money aside to kind of get out of our Santa Barbara bubble. and see what's going on in education, especially school districts that are doing innovative type of work. We traveled to the INACOL conference not too long ago, and this Kettle Moraine School District presented there on their success with competency-based education. The idea behind it is that students are motivated not by grades anymore, but by completing competencies and getting credits, where teachers become evaluators of evidence and not of students. So Kettle Moraine is a national leader in this work. We're beginning to see movements across the country towards competency-based education. And so it's going to give an opportunity for some of our teachers, especially a number of teachers from our academy program, who I think would really benefit from this model of education, to go and see what they've done, what they've learned. We're particularly interested in how they've worked out transcripting with colleges when you're using competency-based education. So it's just an opportunity to learn from them already going through a lot of the growing pains that I'm sure they went through.
Great, thank you. I just think it's exciting to look and to always be open to new opportunities and ways of viewing, in education. So.
Yeah, and also for the public, on the board agenda item itself, I included a link to their website that has a lot of documentation and professional articles written about the work that they've been doing over the past few years.
Great, so I urge the public to check out that link. I also pulled number 5. The Learning Ally program, I guess this Dr. Wagenknecht. This is a new program as part of the pilot for dyslexia work. And I just wanted could you just speak to the goals of the program briefly?
The goals of the Learning Ally program are basically to give a tool to our special education teachers to be able to use in the classroom as supplementary, not supplanting the work to enhance the reading skills of students with IEPs.
Great, and I guess I wanted to just clarify that for the public, that the work that is going forward is moving forward with the pilot, with the dyslexia program, to really uncover comprehensive ways of looking at, supporting our students in this area. So.
Right, and Learning Ally is just one tool that we use, and the dyslexia work is not focused primarily so much on students with IEPs, but rather Learning Ally is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Capps, E10, or is it going to take longer than?
I mean, we might have to pull it up and things. I'm not sure. It's
Okay.
it's the board policy.
The board
Whatever
policy.
you prefer. I don't think it's too lengthy, but.
If we could take time, because we're going to have to go back in closed session, if we can get this taken care of. Is it possible for Brian to pull that up, E10?
So that's, yeah.
Right.
4 board policies in Series 6000. So I know this came back on consent because we'd already done the first reading, but upon reviewing it again, I think if we can, for all 4, if you can scroll down, please, to the section about professional development. There we go. So I think it would be important to add when it comes to professional development, and it's probably something that I imagine is in practice, but I think important to convey that professional development programs would be designed with input from teachers. Some sort of language to that effect. Again, that might be implied to all of you who are setting professional development, but I think that upon further reflection of this policy, that's an important point, that this isn't sort of handed down from above what professional development programs will be, but rather in consultation with teachers. if that change can be added. Or if that needs further discussion, we can table it, whatever you prefer. Board
Yes,
President.
yes, do we have any feedback on with regards to this, Ms. Capps proposed? Ms.
I
Carey?
see our two instructional leaders stepping up to the podium. I'll let them comment first.
I know you didn't, good evening, Board. I know you didn't pose it as a question. I see the opportunity, though, to just confirm that we do design professional learning with input from teachers. Part of our annual cycle involves a professional learning needs survey.
Sure.
And a needs assessment, and so we're on the cusp of sending that out, and we gather those responses prior to spring break each year for planning what is one of our most ambitious professional learning opportunities, which is, we call it June PL week, right after graduation. So that's just our standard operating procedure for that. Also, I think it's notable that our teacher contract, our agreement with SBTA on page 11, we were looking at today, singles out that it is with teacher input that professional learning is designed. So I don't know, I just wanted to offer that to
No, that's helpful.
to the comment that there's both practices and already some other places in our formal documentation where that is sort of, there's a guarantee of that when it comes to just responding to the suggestion to incorporate that in board policy. I don't see
Well, it sounds
any-
like it's already happening, so if I would feel more comfortable as a board member if the board policy reflected that, because as it reads now, it doesn't make that clear, even though it's clear in practice, so that would be helpful.
And I would agree with you that, in fact, it seems to kind of convey that it is top-down.
Yes.
And it doesn't, I think it kind of obscures that that's our practice. I don't know if Dr. Ramirez has any other comments. I don't see the harm in incorporating that, because that would be reflective of our practice.
Great.
Only to add that, good evening, Board. Only to add that if it's okay, we can essentially borrow some of the language you offered, try to include it in a meaningful way in the language.
Yep.
And perhaps bring it forward once again on consent or
That'd be great.
something to that
So
effect.
something to the effect of in consultation with teachers. Again, it's nice to be assured that that's happening, but I think it just, from the board level, should be made more explicit.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it sends a strong message to the teachers that we support their input in this process. Thank you, Ms. Capps.
Thank you. Okay, item E13, staff poll.
Yes, before this goes for approval, I'd like to just strike through certificated resignation that's on the list. I did late today get a teacher came in and wanted to rescind that resignation, so decided not to resign. That's Jonathan Norris. So if you look down the list, you can see we'd be striking Jonathan Norris from that list.
Board comments?
Only while we have that pulled up, is that it's really exciting to see the large group of induction teacher candidates. And I just wanted to acknowledge that the district has taken on that new role. And it would be exciting to hear more about that at some point, because I think it's really going to be a benefit to our teachers and to the support they're going to receive in that mentoring experience.
Yeah, I'd love to come back and give you information on that. It's one of the most exciting things that's happening in HR. We got that approved, and it's now in its first year of implementation, so we can bring that back.
Okay, that concludes items that were pulled. Move approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second? And is there a second?
Second, please.
Second. Board, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next, we'll be moving to our action agenda, starting with the student disciplines. F1, Ms. Capps.
Yes, in the case of 201819-13 stipulated agreement, the motion is, I'm sorry, correct me on the language I'm supposed to put forward.
Are you on 1-3?
Yeah.
Okay. Motion to approve if it's stipulated agreement language.
Motion is for full expulsion, 2 semesters, which ends June 2019.
Okay. Second? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Ms. Munoz?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then on item 2, case number 201819-16, stipulated agreement, motion to approve expulsion with enforcement suspended, 2 semesters, which ends June 2019.
Do you hear a second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And with case number 201819-17, a motion for full expulsion, 2 semesters, which ends June 2019.
Second, do I hear a second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
And case number 201819-20, a stipulated agreement, motion for full expulsion of 2 semesters, which ends January 2020.
Second it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Is that all
Yeah, that's it.
Do we do 9 at the very top? Should be some at the very top.
We missed
Number 9.
11, 12,
Do we
and
do them
13.
all?
Oh.
Yeah, number
I'm
9.
sorry, I started, excuse me. Apologies. 201, yeah, that's why I threw everyone off. I started.
Right, okay.
Yes.
There
Going
we
back
go.
to the first case, which is 201819-09.
Okay. Is there a
And
second?
the motion is for an expulsion with enforcement suspended 2 semesters, which ends June 2019.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And the next case is 201819-11. The motion is for a full expulsion, 2 semesters, which ends June 2019.
Second? I'll second it.
Great.
Okay. And
You have to
should be
vote.
All in
all
favor?
in favor, yes.
Say aye.
Aye.
And lastly, the case number 201819-12, stipulated agreement, the motion for full expulsion, 2 semesters, which ends June 2019.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Dr. Reed, all in favor?
Aye.
I think we got through that painlessly. Thank you, Ms. Capps. Okay. Next item, F8. I do believe we have some public comments on this.
We do. Item F8, we have 3 public comment, so same situation with, you all have 3 minutes. I'm going to call first Deborah Williams, followed by Ellen Hunter, followed by Katie Davis. Thanks.
Members of the board, my name is Deborah Williams. I am a lecturer in the Environmental Studies Department at UCSB. I have a home that is run entirely on solar panels, and I am a very strong supporter of public education. In a community that values sustainability, I support the school board's adoption of the Call to Climate Action Resolution, which is before you today. However, along with others here, I strongly encourage you to go one step further. To significantly advance our community's educational, sustainability, and financial needs, I urge the school board to join the cities of Santa Barbara and Goleta by adopting a clear goal of 100% renewable energy by 2030, and then developing an explicit plan for how to achieve this goal by installing solar in our schools as soon as possible. Installing solar in public schools is becoming increasingly common. According to the Solar Foundation's most recent report, over 5,400 K-12 schools have installed solar in the U.S. In California alone, there are over 1,900 solar schools. Why? To save money and to set an example. School districts are saving so much money by installing solar. For instance, in Ventura County, Oak Park, Simi Valley, and Oxnard school districts all incorporate solar power at their schools. In Simi, 73% of their electricity usage is solar, and they've already saved over $4.8 million. Oak Park saved almost $400,000 in 1 year alone last year. I'm providing you a copy of the VC Star article that describes this. Then there is leadership and example. First and foremost, we teach by what we do. As Alexander Dumas noted, instruction is good for a child, but example is worth more. Having a clear goal and action plan to achieve 100% renewable energy by 2030 would send a compelling message to students and the community about the importance of clean, sustainable energy and our commitment to the future of our youth. So many agree that climate change is one of the
30
greatest
seconds.
threats our children face in their future. President Obama stated, quote, "No challenge poses a greater threat to our future and future generations than change in climate." And former Governor Schwarzenegger stated, quote, "I say the debate is over. We know the science, we know the threat, and we know that the time for action is now." So for our children's sake and for the financial benefit of the district, in addition to passing the resolution before you, please pass an explicit goal of 100% renewable energy by 2030 and begin implementing it as soon as possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Ellen Hunter.
I almost feel like I don't even need to say anything else because thank you for everybody that has touched upon climate change tonight. My name is Ellen Hunter. Good evening, school board members and community members, superintendent. I am a teacher at Monroe School as well as a parent of 3 Santa Barbara Unified students who have graduated. I first want to thank you for requesting that the climate change resolution be put on tonight's agenda. I spoke in October about this climate change resolution and then again in December, so really appreciate you acknowledging the most pressing issue of our time, climate change. It's great timing because the National School Board Association will be considering a climate action resolution at their March meeting of this year. I don't know if they'll pass it. I'm hoping they will, but if they do, that would be really, really significant because it would really help drive a society-wide attitude shift towards the way we react and perceive climate change. So tonight is your chance to lead the way. And we sit here today, we've already touched upon and reflected upon what happened a year ago in our own community. That was a product of climate change. And we know California faces pressing environmental challenges that require creative, bold solutions. These creative, bold solutions will come from our students. We have to lead the way and provide them with climate literacy. So I am asking, because this is providing a great opportunity to make environmental and climate literacy a part of our K-12 education here in Santa Barbara. We need to include climate literacy education in the resolution and provide teachers with the training and curriculum to facilitate this learning around climate change. And in return, our students will be given the tools to solve the problems that we face. So thank you again. I just was thrilled to see that you guys took action so quickly and really, really appreciate that. And I mean, you included
30 seconds.
You included 8 items in here that, you know, are doable. You're either doing or you can do related to climate change. So thank you for your commitment to the children of Santa Barbara. And just remember, it's a nonpartisan social justice issue, climate change. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, Katie Davis. Thank you.
Hello and good evening. My name is Katie Davis. I'm chair of the Santa Barbara Sierra Club as well as a parent of two children in the school district. We strongly support this resolution and we thank you for bringing it forward. I first got involved with the Sierra Club when I became a parent because I didn't want my kids to one day ask me why we didn't do more about climate change. We know it's happening, we know the impacts it will have on their generation, and we owe it to them to do what we can now to head off the worst impacts and to be role models and to educate them and prepare them adequately for this challenge. The latest UN report that was mentioned by some, it was written by 91 scientists from 40 countries, and it concludes we need to cut emissions quickly, like significantly within the next decade, and be carbon neutral in the next 30 years, or to avoid catastrophic consequences. So it's now. This will be the defining challenge and opportunity of our time, and for the students in our schools right now. I have one recommended change to the resolution. It's missing a commitment to climate education. I think the other items are great. I would either suggest broadening the first bullet point to cover all environmental education. It's specific to gardening, which is great, but not the only thing we can do. Or add an additional bullet to ensure all students learn about climate science and understand the scientific basis of climate change. I think we can do better here. My oldest son is now a senior at Dos Pueblos High School, and climate change was discussed in his freshman biology class, but not in any of his other science classes, not in AP chemistry, even though the chemistry of our oceans is changing, not in AP physics, even though the leading climate scientists are physicists, not in 4 years of the engineering academy, nor in any of his other programs or classes. So I'm actually surprised how little education he's had, and it wasn't brought up in the science, the school nights, the science nights. That would be a great opportunity to educate on this issue to families. So I think we have some great opportunities. So perhaps the Sustainability Committee, and I love the idea of having that, could also look for ways to improve climate education in the schools, as well as the actions. I support the suggestions about solar. I think that's really good timing, that the City of Santa Barbara and the County of Santa Barbara are looking at strategic energy plans, looking at the solar potential. So what a great time for you to be committing to doing that as well. Thank you so much for taking forward this resolution.
Thank you.
Board comments? Ms. Capps? Yeah. I just didn't know if you had any comments from that, or if everybody had read background, if you had any comments for discussion. You want to go through it?
I just thought that generally we heard from Mr. Matsuoka first, or no?
It doesn't matter which order. Hear from somebody. You want to go first?
Sure, I'd be glad to. So I appreciate this coming before us as a school district. We do play a role in educating the next generation. I did take the rough draft and localized it to our Santa Barbara context. Ms. Capps added some really nice content on numbers 1 through 8. It's I think it's one of the challenges of our times, of our generation. I was just reading an article about our carbon footprint. And sorry, I'm going to switch to chemistry teacher here. So much of our energy sources are carbon-based. Solar is not. Solar is just, it's sunlight. I was struck by one article who talked about hydrogen as an energy source, which is really tough to implement in society, but the byproduct of burning hydrogen is water, not carbon dioxide. And it just made me think about, where does hydrogen play a role in future energy systems? We had a few power outages this week, and I know that I appreciate one of our statements is trying to be grid independent as much as possible, because we are hearing from utility companies that there will be times where we may not be able to supply that energy. I think it's symbolic that if you look out in front, we have our first vehicle charging station that went in last week. We need to get it connected to ChargePoint, but it will be up and running. And we need to get charging stations across our schools because they're community hubs. And I see that being a great resource. So I'm really proud to have us bring this forth as a school district. We will circulate it wide and far. So look forward to the impact that we have on our community and our students.
Now board comments. Ms. Capps? That's okay. Nope. With you.
Well, sure, thank you. And I want to first thank Ellen Hunter for bringing this forward very respectfully and politely, and your passion is so clear, and I can only imagine how you teach this way your students, and waste reduction and all the things that you espouse with your kindergartners. So I want to thank you because you really prompted us to take this act, to bring this forward. And I'm struck by the timing too, and Mr. Matsuoka alluded to this, of the fact that evacuation orders were just lifted just within the last couple of hours, and was, thinking about how traumatizing that must be for so many members of our community to have to pack up again so close to the anniversary and have this rain come down. And it's not a coincidence. This was a climate-related event that happened to our community, and we can no longer sort of have this comfort of climate change being somewhere affecting polar bears or island nations that are sinking, but we were ground zero for climate reactivity. Also this week, I heard on the radio about the new report out of Science, the journal Science, that oceans are actually warming 40% more than the UN had previously thought. And why is that relevant? It's because oceans are warming, we have a disruption to our water cycle, and we have massive downpours like we did a year ago, where we had 0.6 of an inch in 5 minutes. And so it's local, it's here, it affects our schools, it affects our students. I really appreciate the public comments today. One comment that struck something I hadn't really thought about is if we're teaching our students about climate science, hopefully a lot more than we can be. What a good lesson for them to look outside and know that their schools have solar panels, and that they're in the cafeteria that's composting, and that there's all of the things so they can have a feeling that at least we're doing our part in a very, very daunting issue. And I do, again, appreciate the public coming here, because this is Santa Barbara, and it's part of our DNA to be environmentalists. I think I'm an environmentalist because I was born here. Simple fact. It's how I was raised. It's how I see the world. So I want our schools to catch up and be a leader in this space. I do think that our cities, Goleta and Santa Barbara and our county, are setting the course for reliance on renewable energy, and that we should be lockstep and catch up a bit here. We're doing great things. I'm very proud, and I will continue to advocate even more, but I do see a lot of progress, even in the short time I've been on the board. But I think we can do more. And this resolution is great because it expresses our internal values of how we see ourselves as a district and the actions that we can take. But it also, if you notice, if you get to the bottom, it sends an external message that Congress really needs to do more. And that might be also a daunting thing, a message to set forward, but if more schools, districts do that, that's a way in which we can make that voice even louder and to be part of this collective effort. I think it's something like 29 school districts. So I appreciate the suggestion of strengthening the part about climate literacy. I think that was an oversight, and so I would recommend that we make that more pronounced in this language. And again, I just am proud that we can set forth this signal, but it's more than just a signal with a resolution, because there's so much activity on a daily basis to really show our students that our motto, that this is about a future that's yet to be created, and guess what? That future is going to be renewable energy, and we better get started. Thanks.
Additional more comments? Ms. Ford?
I totally am in agreement, and really grateful to all the members of the community who've come forward, and I'm really proud of the board for moving forward on this also. I remember my first day as a principal at Peabody, which was in 2006. A parent came up to me and asked me what I wanted my legacy to be, and I kind of looked at him like, I didn't have a good answer, and he said, the legacy in this district has to be solar panels and solar energy, and that was in 2006. So 12 years later, I think its time has come, and Robert Johnson would be very happy to hear this board meeting. So, Ms. Capps, I totally agree with you. I'm wondering if number 1 can just be strengthened, as was suggested, to maybe say something like encouraging K-12 environmental education and climate science to include creating edible gardens. That would be my suggestion.
Does that capture both the comments from the public as well as your additions in terms of that? Do we agree with that? Thank you for that, Ms. Porter. In terms of that, are we good with that? Yeah. Okay. So can we move approval to make a motion to approve it with those suggested edits?
Yeah, I think I don't think you need to repeat it. We'll capture it off the video and we'll just edit that first statement. And then that's the version that we will send out to all of our audiences.
Okay. Oh, Dr. Reed?
Yeah, I full-heartedly agree with my fellow board members. And I think one of the things that I just want to say is that when we passed the resolution in the beginning of my tenure on this board to support our students who are immigrants in our community, we didn't take that in a light fashion. We moved very clearly and deliberately to continue to support our students by continuing and creating a cultural proficiency framework and eventually also our safety and mental health for all of our students. So my point is that when we pass resolutions, they aren't just pieces of paper that we look at and say, check mark, we did it, but we believe and we support wholeheartedly and stand behind what we have signed off on. So I would state as a board member that I strongly believe that we should continue not only in the vein of looking at climate change, but really looking at how can we be inclusive around environment education, place-based education, nature-based education to ensure that we are really supporting all of our students in every way. So I take this resolution very seriously, and I commend its work, and I support the public coming forward and providing us with these wonderful opportunities to really expand on what we should be doing in this 21st century. Thank you.
So would you like the motion to approve the resolution?
Motion to approve this resolution. Let's see whether I can call it correctly. Which number are we at?
201819-30. That's F8.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Approval of Resolution 201819-30, call to climate change action.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Okay, thank you. See the clap on that, it's important. Thank you for your work, Ellen. Okay, item F10, approval of program line surveying services. Ms. Jate. I think I skipped one.
Sorry, we just missed number 9.
Yeah, I skipped it. Sorry, Ms. Jate, hold on. So F9, approval of the California School Employees Association for successor contract negotiation. Dr. Becchio.
Thank you very much. Good evening, board members. I bring to you tonight for the third time and for action the Sunshine proposal from California School Employees Association and their intention to negotiate with us.
Any questions or comments? Board? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
We're on the,
Aye. You guys are twins tonight. What's going on with that? Okay, now F10, approval of the program land surveying services. Ms. Jate.
Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
So now that we own the property of the Armory, the district needs to obtain basic data such as the footprint of the elevation, utilities, and et cetera. We also are looking for where all of the utilities lie in regards to how they relate to the city and attach into the city. We're recommending that the board approve this contract with Prober Land Surveying.
Any questions or comments, board? May I have a motion to approve?
so moved.
Second? A second? Ms. Munoz? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Jate. Perhaps you're going to stay there.
I'm going to stay here for a while.
Okay, F11, approval of professional service agreement for fiscal support services.
Yes, this is an agreement with Eric Hall and Associates. They're a service provider, and they will give us feedback on our petitions, our facility use agreements, our memorandums of understanding, and our possibly our oversight, our required oversight that we do for all of our charters.
As you know, we have 3 charters, and now we have a 4th one, which is a State Board of Education charter, which they're going to help us navigate through that scenario, because this charter is the only one in the state of California at this time that runs its program like it does. And so it's a learning experience for even the state of California, as we found out today. So I highly recommend the board approve this contract with Eric Hall and Associates. And I personally know the woman who is going to be helping us with this. She was a CBO in the Santa Barbara County at a couple of years, well, 10, 15 years ago now, and she worked with FICMAT under fraud and charter, and now she has gone on to Eric Hall and is helping other districts and with their charter schools and fraud and things like that.
Any comments or questions? I just had a comment with regards to on the staff report. Mr. Tay didn't list the funding source for this service. On your staff report, it doesn't say what the funding source is. I know I had requested on a previous one, but it's not on this one either.
Oh, so, yeah, because I was going, wow, the other one was bond funded. And I was like, this isn't bond funded.
No, it's not.
No, this will be out of the general fund.
Okay, thank you.
Or operating fund.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we second someone? Who here second? Ms. Bernice? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr.
Can I share with the board, there's a parallel board meeting going on in San Ynez Valley High School District tonight, and the topic of Olive Grove and the financial impact on their district is before their board. They are basic aid, as we will be next year for sure. The financial impact on them is so big that it is creating a big stir. And so this contract with this consulting firm is really important. We are also in consultation with CDE staff. I'm actually reaching out to a lot of different networks. Actually, Dr. Van Leuven said, let me know how I can be of help, because, you know, when a state board approves a charter and they're in Sacramento and they are not aware of the implementation locally and the financial impact, that's not good for local school districts. So know that we're actually going to start partnering with San Ynez Valley and lightly with Lompoc and Santa Maria Joint Union High School District, because Olive Grove, they appealed to all 4 districts. We've said no twice. The county said no. State Board of Ed said yes. And what we are hearing is they are kind of surprised at how this is playing out. So you'll hear more about this in the coming months.
Thank you. Are there any comments? Okay. Item 12, Mr. Tay.
Yes, thank you. So item 12 is, as you know, in 2016, our community supported the district by approving $193 million worth of bonds for facility upgrades. In April of 2017, the board authorized the issuance of $70 million, 50 from the Unified District, and $20 million from the SFID, which is the School Improvement Facility District, which is the elementary district. We had to name it that because you have to exclude our partner schools in that taxing entity area and separate the 2 taxing entities. We are now ready to go and do another issuance of bonds for the same amount, $50 million in the Unified and $20 million in the SFID. And so in your packet for this item is the board resolution, which authorizes the bond issuance for us to go out and actually sell the bonds. The form for the purchasing contract agrees that we will sell the bonds to our underwriter, and then the POS basically says that it tells you more details about the bonds, what they can be spent on, the terms of the bond, and a lot of numbers missing, as you can see, and I put in a Friday letter explaining why those numbers are missing, because until we sell the bonds, we can't complete that whole document. So this resolution, 2018-19-26, and the approval of the documents that behind it, for example, the purchasing contract and the official preliminary official statement, is what I'm asking for approval tonight.
Okay. Board comments or questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Jate?
Thank you. So item 13 is the resolution for the SFID, which is the elementary, and this resolution would authorize us to go out and sell $20 million worth of bonds. And I wanted to bring up that on the 17th, whether providing that we will be, Mr. Matsuoka and myself will be up with, in San Francisco with Moody's and Standard & Poor's getting a rating. We're expecting our rating to be the same, and until we get heavily into basic aid, I doubt that it will change until then. So we're excited about that, at least.
So you asked approval for item 13.
I'm asking for approval for the authorization of $20 million for the SFID.
Yes. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Item F14, Mr. Vizzolini.
Good evening, Board. Superintendent Matsuoka. This action item is in support of Assembly Bill 1808, the full-day kindergarten grant program. Part of the application process is to have the governing board pass a resolution supporting the application for the grant program. So that's what we're asking you to do in this action item, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Any comments or questions, Board? I just had a question with regards to this facility, which is ahead of the governor's proposed budget for full-day kindergarten. How does that impact that, or does that put us in a better position?
Not necessarily better yet. We don't really know how the new governor's budget will affect this current program. The current one is $100 million in 2 rounds of financing. So the applications are till the end of this month for the first round and in May for the second round. I imagine we'll get some more information soon about how the additional funding will roll out, and we'll adjust accordingly.
Any comments or questions? Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Board, do I hear a second?
Second.
Ms. Capps, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Vizzolini. Now we move to F15, discussion and recommendation for approval of 2 new course requests for San Marcos High School. Ms. Carey.
Good evening again, board members. Veteran board members or returning board members, you will recall that we are at the time of the year where you will see these coming before you. I wanted to give a little bit of an overview about how new courses come to be, and we will always seek your approval for proposed new courses. And in part, that's because tonight you'll see 2 items on the agenda, and one is in this action section and another is in report. So typically, proposed new courses would come to you in the report section, and there would be, a time for there to be conversation, question and answer, and they would come back around to you on the action section of the agenda. Tonight's agenda presents an exception to that principle, that norm, and the reason for that is, as you can see, with both these classes, they have to do with our, the pathways that we're building and some of the technical courses that we would like to see proliferating. In particular, the culinary arts course is a capstone course for a CTE pathway at San Marcos. As you probably already know at San Marcos, what happens is essentially because of the 4x4 block schedule, when we begin the second semester next week, that's effectively beginning a new year for a course. So students, teachers offer and students take what is otherwise at Santa Barbara High School or at Dos Pueblos High School a full year of a course within a semester's time. So the timing for these two courses at San Marcos is tight, and it's because these are places where people have been moving fast and with a very entrepreneurial spirit, but definitely in alignment with district aims in the realm of CTE and the proliferation of qualifying CTE pathways, which will help to promote college career readiness, especially for certain students who might have difficulty accessing college career readiness by other metrics or measures. So this is atypical tonight to bring you two courses in the action section of the agenda that are new. There is nothing I would say, in my opinion, controversial about these particular two courses. I definitely want to be available to respond to any questions you might have about them, but we are bringing a special appeal forward. Excited that we were able to say that these courses can be offered for even this next semester as it gets underway, but knowing we don't want to offer them if it doesn't meet with your approval.
Thank you, Ms. Carey. Any comments or questions? Ms. Ford?
Just one question, so I can understand the immediacy of this, but what's the usual process?
So I'll speak to that now. I was going to speak to that in the report section, but that's the question I was eager to answer. What returning board members will recall is that during the spring in particular, there might be what I would call kind of a flurry of requests for approval for new courses. We actually have a mind to systematize that a little bit more. I think it can be somewhat disorienting to see them come at what seems kind of like an ad hoc moments. It is in the spring when we're building master schedules and we're eliciting from students what their course requests are for the subsequent school year. And part of that process is not all courses that we put in the course catalog and on the course request form for students end up flying. It depends on how they're subscribed by students. And yet we're continually through the initiative of staff members and in concert with school administration and with district administration, we're continually pushing the envelope on what new types of engaging and dynamic, lots of times elective courses is what we see coming forward. So we have a mind to set some windows for that moving forward in subsequent school years for all levels of the organization so that we can be messaging to teachers. It's great that we have, and administrators, it's great that we have ideas about new courses, but we need to know about those within certain windows so that we can be bringing those forth as a body with ample time for review and conversation well in advance or comfortably in advance of this cycle every year of new courses and course selection. So that is a little bit about what it has been and what we hope that it will be by next cycle.
So would the discipline be something like introducing a set of courses at one meeting and the next meeting approving it?
That would be the idea, yeah,
Okay.
and the ideal. We ask that there be updates to the course catalog as we head into winter break, and that actually has a timeline that we've moved up in the last couple of years. It's been sometimes challenging, I'm looking at Brian, it's been sometimes challenging for everybody to meet that deadline, but we think with enough advanced communication and heading into 1920 and letting folks know we just need a backwards map from this and allow more time both for our own internal review and then also for board review. But I'm confident about the review of district on the part of district staff about these particular two courses for San Marcos High School, as well as the one that I'll talk about in the subsequent agenda item, which will come back around at the next meeting. It doesn't have the same urgency. It's for next year, not for next semester.
Thank you.
Additional comments or questions? To hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second, Ms. Board. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board members, we take a break between action items and the report discussion. There are two short items, and I would say we continue through because we're going to have to reconvene to a closed session shortly after here. So we'll go through. We'll keep piling through. So, Mr. Bizzolini.
Good evening again, Board. At a recent board meeting, staff was directed to give you an update on the Monroe. You like that? So this is a quick update on the Monroe Elementary School Portable Replacement Program projects, pardon me. So this is the existing plan. Shows the configuration of the buildings as they are now. What we have now is the portables below the kindergarten down here at the bottom are 4 that are slated to go away. There's also a large green section that's in between those classrooms in rooms 3 through 6, which are, it's kind of an unusable space. It's got a lot of grade to it. It's not ADA compliant. There's a planter with a big retaining wall. It's kind of clunky for the school to use. There's a pavement path that runs down through there that's not ADA compliant, and all of the portables are at graduating elevations. So the new plan takes out those 4 classrooms, and the corner that you see up here is the existing permanent kindergarten building, so you get some reference to where those are. That's down below the rooms 1 and 2 here. So the 4 classrooms that are going away, the other 2 are going to be facing them on the playground. So this is a plan that we worked out with Principal Naughton, and what we're creating is permanent classrooms. So these are not portables. They will be on grade, so there are no more ADA ramps. There will be a new concrete area that allows ADA access to the area. The path through the middle is actually going to be a retaining wall, and we're creating 2 plazas so that when it's finished, we'll end up with 2 oversized kindergarten classrooms, potential for kindergarten or maker space, depending on usage for year by year. We'll have 2 standard classrooms and 2 6th grade classrooms. They'll all have plumbing, which was a big item for the principal, excuse me. They will be air conditioned, and I'm happy to note that they will be solar. They will have solar panels on them, so they will be meeting with our new resolution. The plazas they'll provide for some outdoor learning capability. They are potentially used for outdoor dining, so some relief for the cafeteria, especially on nicer days. It is going to be ADA accessible like it isn't now. And like we were saying, those 2 plazas, they are going to offer group gathering opportunities. So this could be used for a parent meeting, after school, any number of things, summer programs. So here's our timeline. So tonight, in your consent items, you approve the contractor. So McGilvery Construction will now be working with KBZ to help develop the plans. Our plan is to get them submitted to DSA in July of this year. Takes a little while to get out, but we're expecting them to come back in November. We should have a guaranteed maximum price by February, probably a little sooner, because McGilvery is going to be involved as of tomorrow. Quite literally, they'll be working on plans and specifications before they go to DSA. We will bring it back to the board February, March, April, depending on how the timing works out and when we get our price. And we plan on breaking ground in May of 2020. So any questions?
Yeah. Any questions, board, comments? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Vizolino.
Yeah, thank you for the clear update.
Thank you.
Ms. Carey?
Okay, as promised, I'm bringing you this proposal for a new course in what is our current regular practice. It will, pending your feedback, questions, and comments, I would be requesting that it come back on action on January 29th. And this is a proposal for an IB, IB standing for International Baccalaureate Film Studies class, to be offered at Dos Pueblos High School in the 1920 school year. A relatively new hire, we happen to have acquired a teacher who has a unique expertise in this field, and who teaches quite a variety of courses already, but there's a lot of interest and demand for this course. And it's particularly appealing that it would open up some access, we believe, to IB and some alternative ways to what the course offerings offer currently for the IB diploma program. Do you have questions?
Dr. Reed?
I have no questions except to say that I would have loved this course.
I know, it's
I mean, I would have absolutely loved it. It's what I went into college doing, actually, is film. But, so I think it's exciting, and I can't wait till it gets on the action item.
And I would say if pending student signups, I would love to invite you, I would highly commend visiting this class, given what I know to be the instructor's talent. So it'll be an exciting offering should it come to pass. Thank you.
Any additional comments or questions, board members? Okay, thank you, Ms. Carey.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so that comes in, there's no items to return. Should I address the coming events before we reconvene to closed session? Or are we going to reconvene to closed session first before we take I, J, and K? What's your preference?
We could do J and K now, and then we can do closed session.
Yes, okay. Any coming events that are coming? Ms. Capps?
Yes, the Wellness Committee is meeting on the 28th, and we've divided up into subgroups, including a sustainability group, which I'm leading, and so that there's a lot of momentum there. So the meeting is January 28th.
Okay, thank you. Additional coming events? I know, Dr. Reed, you had mentioned the coffee with the board.
Yes. But I was just going to say that I'm not going to be at the meeting, our next meeting, because I'm having the opportunity, through the support of the district, to attend the Equity Symposium in Washington, D.C., which I'm very, very excited about. And I hope to report back some amazing information of what's being done across the nation with regards to equity in school districts. And then also participating in the Advocacy Institute. And the assignment that I've actually released to the district to support me with in understanding is really understanding more about Individuals with Disabilities Act, IDEA. And the idea is that if we can come forward with our advocacy in January, that we could be the catalyst for the National School Board Association's campaign to modernize and fully fund IDEA. So it's an exciting opportunity, and I'm looking forward to learning what other districts are doing, not only across the state, but across the nation. So thank you, Mr. Matsuoka, for this opportunity.
Okay, moving to any future agenda items? Ms. Capps?
Yes, I'd like to request a future agenda item. I'd like to have a report from our cabinet on GATE. I feel like as though in our 2 years, my 2 years of being on the board, we haven't really dove into that. And yeah, so I'd like to hear a little bit more about the program and et cetera.
Just in general, is there something specific about the GATE program or just a?
It's specifically just the structure of the magnet and, yeah, the magnet program and also what campuses are doing for those students who are GATE identified.
Ms. Ford?
I'd love to add, maybe to your request, Ms. Capps, some data review about number of students, perhaps grade levels, any kind of data that would be relevant, so we'd have a good understanding of what's happening in GATE.
Oh, adding your to the GATE
This is about
request.
GATE.
Okay.
And then I have another one that I'd love to suggest. One would be some sort of a review that, or report of staffing in special education. This has come up a number of times to me from parents, so that the board has a better understanding of how extensive this issue is of unfilled positions and how that violates IUPs in particular. And so we could talk about also what might be a plan that's in place to increase or to fill those positions.
Dr. Reed?
I just wanted to acknowledge that we do have a current list of agenda items that we have already have on a list, an ongoing list. So the practice is to put that on the list and to ensure that we definitely want to bring it forward, but then we have to also be careful in terms of the amount of work that puts on the cabinet. So I just want to acknowledge that perhaps when the board president meets with Mr. Matsuoka, to look at what has already been in existence on that list, and maybe we could also address those as they've been on the list for a while. but in a way that is appropriate for the work of the district.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Reed. Any comments with regards to the request?
Yeah, we will take those requests into consideration. We'll just try to figure out the right flow of the spring. This time of the year is usually pretty calm, but as we get towards LCAP and staffing, it gets pretty full. So let's see what we can weave in the next couple months.
Okay, so now we will adjourn this open session to reconvene closed session to discuss items B6 and B7.